as you're getting ready to transition to the new one. So honored to be here, honored to be a SOG guy on your show. So
honored to sit across from you, and I truly mean that. Came highly recommended from our mutual friend John Stryker-Meyer, and he's told us a lot about you. And this is the last interview in the studio, and I wanted the perfect guest to shut the lights off with, and it is a real honor to be sitting here with you. So thank you for making the time to be here, and I'm really honored to document your story and your history, and it's going to be good. It's going to be a powerful interview. You ready?
Ready. Looking forward to it.
Me too. So every guest starts out with an introduction here. Dynamite Dick Thompson. Last interview in the studio. 21-year retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, Green Beret, Ranger, and MACV-SOG operator who ran over 20 cross-border recon direct impact missions into Laos, Cambodia, and North Vietnam. Awards include 4 Bronze Star medals, 2 with V for Valor, 2 Air Medals for aerial combat, 1 with V for Valor, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry with Gold Star for Valor. Natural-born tracker, raised on your grandparents' farm, you could smell the NVA in the jungle. Distinguished member of the Airborne Ranger Training Brigade, served as a professor of military science at the University of Georgia, author of SOG Codename Dynamite, a 2-book series about top-secret missions that were once classified for 20 years, a Ph.D. in psychology, founder of High Performing Systems, and author of The Stress Effect, teaching leaders how to make decisions under pressure. Among your hobbies, you are a master scuba diver. You've made over 1,200 free fall halo parachute jumps, earned a black belt in karate, and you're an Ironman. You're a husband, a father, a grandfather, and most importantly, a Christian.
Thank you.
I'm sure I'm missing something there. But yeah, like I said, it is an honor to be here with you. And so I just want to do a life story with you, document everything you've been through, and hopefully bring a lot of hope to veterans that are coming home from war and that are trying to find their new way in life. So once again, it's an honor.
Thank you. And one of the things that we started doing in our company back in the 90s was we traveled all the time, always going through an airport. So I implemented a policy that said, if you see someone in uniform, or you can tell they're a veteran, standing in the Starbucks line, pay for their coffee, thank them for their service. And then, so everybody had a special credit card, from a company card, to pay for that with. And then a little bit later, we bumped it up some more. And what we started doing is also giving them challenge corn.
Oh, man. So, thank you.
That basically says, thank you for your service. We care about you. Welcome home. And, we'll give that out. I've been doing that now for a long time. It's not the big fancy one like, the coin John gave you, but it's one that we could share with a lot of veterans who had never been welcomed home. So, I'm a little biased along that line because, when I came home, people literally spit at me coming through the airport. And, I also talk later on that my biggest challenge in the beginning, coming home from Vietnam, was restraint. Coming through the airport and listening to somebody yell, baby killer, murderer, or whatever, but noticing that they were not close like you and I are now. They were back at what they considered a safe distance. And I used to think, They have no clue. I can close the distance between us in less than a second because I'm not carrying 90 pounds of gear, and yeah. I could be real ugly to you when I got there. So I have to restrain myself, know that I could do that, but I don't have to do that. And just a lot of things just based on coming from the Wild West back to a country that has some laws and is civilized. I've got to come back to this world. And one of the things that I try to work with veterans on is understanding the skill set you have and how to use it. Because most veterans think, well, you've taught me all this war stuff and tactics and everything. I can't use that stuff back in the civilian world. Yes, you can. You know how to plan, make decisions, organize. You have a whole skill set that can help you be successful. And you got to apply some of the SOG techniques that we'll probably talk about in a little bit to keep moving forward. And you can be successful. So anyway, sorry.
I love that. Thank you. Everybody starts off with a gift.
Thank you.
Vigilance Elite Gummy Bears, made right here in the USA. It's just candy. There's no marijuana in it, no CBD, just candy. So they're legal in all 50 states.
John Meyer said, there might be something in here. He said he noticed some kind of charge after he ate something.
Yeah.
So I'll put it right there, and if I start to run down after a while, I'll consume a couple of. But thank you. I really appreciate that.
Hey, my pleasure. And then one more thing before we get going. So I have a Patreon account, and that's a subscription account. And we've turned that into quite a community. I think we're at 85,000 patrons now. And they're the reason that I get to be here, and that I have this amazing team that I'm surrounded by. And so one of the things that we do is we offer the Patreon community the opportunity to ask each and every guest a question. So this is a question from somebody you might know, John Stryker Meyer. Please explain how you carried 7 claymores, Buku Car-15 rounds, hand grenades, and M79 rounds. I believe you carried it on most missions. Oh, and I forgot your pistol. How did you carry all that?
After the first mission that I went on, where I carried the normal loadout, I used up so much ammunition in the ambush that we went into. This is not going to work. So once I became the team leader, then instead of carrying 5 frag grenades per person, per team member, I upped it to 10. So what that did was, and I usually went out with 6 or 7 people. So if I had 7 men on the team carrying 10 frag grenades apiece, that's 70. With 70 frag grenades, you can do some serious damage. So I also upped the claymore to 3 per person. So some people, like the M79 man, usually didn't carry a claymore because he was carrying so many grenades with him. So, but everybody went to 3. 7-man team, 21 claymores.
Wow. And
then I also started at night on the most likely avenue of approach coming into our remain overnight position. I would put out 7 claymores, daisy chained. 1 click, 7 claymores go off, 10.5 pounds of C4, 4,900 steel balls traveling at 4,000 feet a second. The blast, the steel balls would just shred whatever was out there. And if you were far enough back or happened to be behind a tree and survived, you would say, this guy's crazy. Nobody sets off all of their claymores at one time. So now the survivors, we can go down and get them, and they start to come. That's when they run into 3 more daisy chained, and that goes off. So you catch them by surprise with that.
Wow.
And then they start running into claymores on time fuses that are randomly going off as they're trying to come. And yeah, so in their dossier that they put together on me, it was, this guy's a nut. You don't go charging after his team because he's going to run into all those claymores. And at night, you want those area-type weapons like the claymores and those frag grenades. You can start chunking frag grenades at them. They don't know where they come from.
Yeah.
And they're just going off everywhere.
Man.
And then well, let me say, if you shoot at me, I'm going to shoot back. I really don't like people shooting at me. So I will shoot back. So I found I needed to carry more ammunition. And most guys were carrying, 800 rounds or so, or maybe 700, some 600. I went to 1,000. I carried 50 20-round magazines.
50 20-round magazines.
And in my 20-round magazines, I put 20 rounds because I used brand new magazines every mission. I would draw new magazines, so everybody had new magazines. So they'd only been loaded for 3 or 4 days. So the springs were fine. They were working good. So I never in a firefight had my Car 15 jam. Not from the number of rounds in the magazine. But, so my people had a lot of them. I didn't force them to put 20 if the 18 rule had been ingrained in them. But I encouraged them to put in 20. Because when you run up against the NVA, you're sitting there with a 20-round magazine for initial contact. The NVA's got a 30-round magazine. They've already got 10 more rounds than you do. You run out first, and then the firepower shifts totally over to them now.
Yeah.
So until we finally got the 30-round magazines, we were at a disadvantage every time as soon as we started. So you needed to be able to load faster and, shoot longer.
Man, I never thought about that 20-round magazine versus 30-round magazine.
It's a big
debacle.
difference.
Yeah. How long did it take them to get you guys 30-round magazines?
We didn't get, I got there in 68. We didn't get the 30 rounds until 69. And when we first got them, they couldn't get many. So I could go draw one 30-round magazine per Car 15.
Oh, man.
So we all have one, in our weapon to start with. That was after they made a tweak. I discovered early on, as did a lot of other people, that if you have that 30-round magazine in your Car 15 and you jump off the skid of the helicopter, when you hit the ground, your gun got lighter all of a sudden because the magazine's laying down in the mud. Because the spring on the magazine retainer wasn't strong enough to hold that extra weight.
Wow.
So the shock of hitting the ground, the magazine would fall out. So we had to take the weapons back in, have the spring changed, to a stronger one, so the magazine would stay in there.
Jeez.
But at least you had a 30-round magazine to start with. But I guess my teams just had problems, discipline problems. Maybe it seemed that we lost our 30-round magazines almost every time we were in contact, and I'd have to go back to S4 and draw some more 30-round magazines to replace the ones we lost.
Wow.
And
what?
But then that somebody noticed one day, how are you guys getting so many 30-round magazines? You're only supposed to have one per gun. Your guys are all carrying more. Well, I guess they found some of the ones they lost. So,
What kind of pistol were you carrying?
I tried different ones. I carried a 1911 45 caliber pistol. It was heavy. It only held 7 rounds. But man, if you hit somebody with that, it would put them down. I mean, it hits hard. But then I changed to a Browning high power 9mm, because now I double the amount of ammunition, number of shots in there. So I played with those a little bit, and then I started carrying a high standard 22 caliber long rifle with an integrated silencer, because that thing was so quiet.
Little hush puppy, huh?
Yes. And, you got to be careful where you shoot them. 22, if it hits a vest or something, it's not going to penetrate. So I tried to go for softer spots like the temple. And I did a lot of practice and trying to get a guy, in particular a tracker. If you were tracking me, then I would tell this team, you guys keep going, I'm going to drop back. Somebody's behind us, I'm going to drop back here and have a little chat. So I could go back and take out a tracker. I could take out a dog. I could do things without, a big disturbance. And particularly at night, there were times when we had people walk inside our little perimeter. I mean, we're all within arm's reach of each other in a little circle. And sometimes you'd have somebody walk right through the middle of it. So you couldn't open up with a car 15 because it'd just light the whole area up. But with that 22, I could tap you, particularly if I set off a claymore, made a little noise, shot you at the same time. Nobody'd ever know I took you out.
Wow. You had people inside the perimeter when you guys were at arm's length distance and you're only 6 to 9 people? How many times did that happen?
Several. And we can talk maybe in a little bit about where I had a longer experience of someone inside. That pretty cool.
Let's talk about it now.
I had 22-man team. We had put 2 of our recon teams together because we were going after a group of NVA that had a group of American prisoners that they were trying to take through Laos into North Vietnam, and we were trying to stop them. And we had stopped for an RON. We had 22 people, so it was a circle almost as big as this room in here, and they were about arm's length apart. I was in the center with my assistant team leader, and it was about 21:30. It was dark. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, and I was really tired. My eyes were starting to roll back in my head. I was leaning against a tree, and I heard a twig break. And I opened my eyes, and I was thinking to myself, that sounded like a twig break inside the perimeter. And then I heard another one, and I realized someone was inside our perimeter and was coming directly toward me. I'm laying back. I have a car 15 laying across my lap, and I can hear this person moving. And I knew all of our people knew the rule. Once you go down, you don't get back up at night. Anybody moving is a bad guy. And this guy's coming right toward me, and I was thinking, he's going to step on me. I slid my selector switch over the full auto, and I'm laying there, and he's coming, and the air's so thick. And at this point, I can mentally see a silhouette coming at me although I can't really see the silhouette. I know where it is based on the sound, and now I'm starting to hear him breathe. I'm starting to hear his heartbeat because he realizes he's inside the perimeter and he's probably about to get killed. So his heart is thumping. He's coming right at me. I can't open up because that'll light the whole perimeter up and we'll be in trouble. So I couldn't get to my knife. So I decided just as he gets to me, I'm just going to shoot my left hand up. I'm going to grab a hold of his chest, whatever he's got there, and I'm going to pull him at the same time, raise my leg up and trip him. I'm going to pull him down to the ground. I'm going to hit him in the side of the head with the muzzle of my CAR-15 as I'm bringing him down. If he yells, if he fires his weapon, I'm going to pull the trigger. So he's coming. He got into position. I grabbed him. I jammed the muzzle into the side of his head, just cut a big gash in his head. I bring him down face first into the mud, and he didn't say a word, didn't make a sound. It scared him so bad, he didn't even grasp when I grabbed him. And then I started thinking, now what? I'm sitting here holding this guy face down in the mud. What am I going to do with him? And then I heard a whisper. And the whisper was Trung Nguyen, he was lieutenant in Vietnamese. Lights, lights. What? And he said, lights, lights. And I looked up the ridge toward the top of the mountain, and you could see lights, lanterns coming down the mountain. About 400 people, if you counted one or two people in between each lantern, probably 400 people coming down the ridge line toward where we were. That's not good. We're on a ridge line like that. We picked it so people couldn't get around us. They're coming straight at us. But then I turned and I looked down the ridge. There was that same number coming up the ridge. And they were going to come right to us. We were going to be right in the middle when they got there, about, estimated 800.
Whoa.
So then I realized the guy that I've got face down in the mud is the Vietnamese captain that we took on this mission with us. He didn't have the experience. He didn't realize it when he got up to come tell me there were lights coming, that I might shoot him, or somebody might shoot him or knife him. But anyway, he did call that to our attention. And so these guys are all coming at us. They're going to intersect right on us. So my RTO crawled over and said, "Sir, you're wanted on the radio." And I got the radio, and this was a KY 38 with the KY 28 manual code loader in it and all that stuff. You had to have that daily code set in this coder. You had to be on the right frequency. This was the highest security radio that you could manually carry around. But anyway, so I was talking, answered it, and it was Saigon. And they said, "You are now a prairie fire emergency," meaning everything in that part of Southeast Asia now belongs to you. Everything, every asset that's within range of you, every asset that still has armament left is being diverted to you to try to get you out. And I'm looking up and down and saying, I can see how we are our prairie fire emergency. So I copied that. I got my assistant team leader over and said, "Here's what's going on." And then the RTO says, "Sir, you got to hear this. And I said, WTF, Schaefer, what? I've got 800 people coming. What else you going to tell me? I picked up the radio, the handset, and there's a Vietnamese woman on the radio. There's no way that she can talk to this radio, but she's talking to this tactical radio, secure one. And she's reading our obituary.
What?
She's reading our obituary that we were all killed in action that night. She's reading name by name of everybody who's laying in that perimeter. And she reads my name. She reads off Dick Thompson and keeps going. And Saigon's monitoring, and they heard her read my name off as Dick Thompson, and they said, "Oh, okay, she made a mistake. She doesn't even know his name. Who is Dick Thompson? His name's Henry." No one at that point on that side of the world knew me by Dick Thompson, except for Eldon Bardwell, later Major General Bardwell. And we'd been on the same team before. But somehow she knew my name that no one else knew. And as I'm listening to it, there's music in the background. Not just music, but I realized this is the same music that as a little kid at 12 o'clock every day at my grandmother's house, she would say things like, boys, quieten down. I need to hear the obituaries in the county. And there's a southern kind of music that they played in the South when they would read obituaries, read about somebody that had died. And they're playing this in the background as they're reading our names off as being killed in action that day on a super encrypted radio that they couldn't possibly be talking on. So it kind of got our attention.
I would imagine.
So I got a team leader together, and we put our plan together. And we were armed. We had 4 M60 machine guns with us, 4 grenadiers with us. We had all those claymores. We were loaded for bear. But that kind of got all of our attention. And that started at 9 o'clock at night. It was almost 1,700 the next day when we got out. And we just banged it out with them right and left and had one catastrophe after another. But we got out, and we got everybody out with us.
You got everybody out. Wow.
There were a lot of bad guys that were left, but...
Holy shit. What was the radio? Did you ever figure that out?
Somehow they'd gotten a hold of one. They'd gotten a hold of one of those. They got the radio. They had to have gotten the codes and the frequencies, from the compound. And we think part of what happened was 8 days before, we were at the launch site getting ready to launch on this mission, and a team was overrun. And, the launch site commander came in and said, look, your mission's just changed. You're now bright light. Your team's going to go in to try to recover the team that just got overrun. So they changed our mission. And we went out there and fought it out for a couple of days. And when we came back, we had to have some recovery. We had to replace some people that were wounded during the firefight. So it was 8 days before we could go back and run our original mission. So they had 8 days to get more intel on us and figure out what was going on. And we had some spies there at CCN in the camp that we didn't know about. So,
man, Well, I got another gift for you.
And the KY-38 radio, and that's 54 pounds of radio plus all the batteries, the big batteries that it goes through. Nobody wanted to carry those things. You had to have a PRC-77 to hook to this KY-38. So half of it was on your front chest, half of it was on your back.
Oh, man.
It was unreal. But anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. Well, not much has changed today. Nobody wants to carry the radio, but it's not 50 pounds. But hey, since we're talking about everything you've carried, I got you a little present here. So I got a friend over at Sig Sauer. His name's Jason, and I told him you were coming on, and he is just fascinated with MACV-SOG guys. So he wanted me to present this to you.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead, hold it up. So that is the Sig Sauer P365 Macro Legion, and holds 17 rounds plus one in the pipe. It has that red dot. We were talking about red dots at breakfast. It has the slide cuts in the front to help you with the muzzle flip and recoil. It's made out of all metal, and that is the latest and greatest everyday carry handgun from Sig Sauer. So
Wow.
we wanted
Thank
you to
you.
have that.
That is awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Wow. Fortunately, I'm driving home, so I don't have to try to carry this on a plane.
But yeah, so we wanted you to have that.
So when you get your new studio completed, including your firing range, hopefully I can get invited back up to see if the thing works on your range.
We'll invite you back, you and John.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a little shooting competition.
Oh yeah, he'd love that.
I'm sure you'd whip John's ass in a shooting competition.
Oh yeah. I'll tell him he better start practicing. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Every day it becomes more obvious. The world is changing fast, and the systems we were taught to rely on can't be counted on anymore. Whether it's institutions, governments, or supply chains, when things go wrong, most people are caught completely off guard. That's why it's up to you to take responsibility for yourself, your safety, and your family's well-being. Preparation starts with the basics. For me, that includes long-term emergency food. That's why I use and trust My Patriot Supply. Because when the unexpected hits, I want to know I've done everything I can to be ready for myself and the people I care about. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/SRS and shop a curated collection of my favorite products, from long-term food storage to water filtration, medical kits, and portable power solutions. With lightning fast shipping, your supplies can be at your door in as little as 48 hours. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/SRS right now. That's mypatriotsupply.com/SRS. There are a lot of choices out there for cell phone service, and new ones seem to pop up all the time. But one company continues to stand out: Patriot Mobile. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice quality or coverage to make the switch. Patriot Mobile gives you access to all three major U.S. networks, so if you have service now, you'll have just as good, if not better, coverage with them. Worried that switching is a hassle? It's not. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. And their 100% US-based team will walk you through everything and get you activated in minutes, all from home. Still in contract or owe money on your current phone? No problem. Patriot Mobile even has a contract buyout program to help you make the move. They're good people running a good company, and they actually care about American values. That's hard to find these days, so check them out. Visit patriotmobile.com/SRS or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code SRS for a free month of service when you make the switch. I'd like to get into your story here. So we always start with, where did you grow up?
Grew up in a little town called Walhalla, South Carolina, up in the western tip of South Carolina, right up above Clemson University. And spent a lot of time outside. And, you know, my mother's family had 4 sons. And when World War II came along, all 4 of them were deployed, you know, in World War II. My father was deployed along with them, so there were 5 men, you know, from the family there. And 3 of the brothers, 4 brothers came back. And my father came back. And then when Korea came along, you know, my father was called back in, so served in Korea. And they talked about some Army stuff, mostly at my prodding, saying, what does this mean? What is a platoon? What do you mean have a reserve? What's a reserve? What? Excuse me, all kinds of questions. You know, I was just full of questions about Army stuff. And then when I was about 7 years old, I decided I'm going to have an Army. So I got with my cousin Carl, and I said, you're the first member of my Army. And I had heard about Rangers. I'd heard them talk about what the Rangers did. So I decided it was going to be, you know, Ranger Company. So I formed the 69th Ranger Company. And it was commanded by General Thompson, of course. And so, but we needed more than one other member. I needed to command more than one person. So I started recruiting my other cousins that are about the same age. We got, you know, all the close ones in, the ones I liked, got those guys in. Brought in one female cousin, Pat, which was actually cousin Carl's sister. We brought her in, so we had a whack in the Army. Then we started letting people outside the family in, so it, you know, it grew bigger. And I still got the logbook for Thompson's Rangers at home, the actual logbook.
Are you serious?
And you can open it up, and you can, it's getting pretty faded now, but you can see notes. You can see people's names. You can see the note. You can see information about the only court-martial that we had. So there was one of the members of the company that gave me some lip, and he ended up getting court-martialed and booted out of the Ranger group. But anyway, I still have that book. I mean,
Man, that's
just,
cool.
You know, I cut 2 pieces of cardboard for the covers and taped it together and put the paper inside, and it's pretty cool. So, but I still have it after all these years. So, really got into Rangers, and it, you know, the family did a lot of hunting. My father liked to hunt, so I was brought up with weapons and shooting and hunting and tracking. And every time my parents both worked as I was getting older, so every opportunity I got, I was in the woods by myself, hunting, tracking deer, tracking whatever animals I could find, and studying them. You know, what do they do? How do they move? And then I got this idea, I need to be invisible. How can I be invisible? Excuse me. So to be invisible, it's not just that you are not visually seen. if I'm invisible, you can't hear me. You can't smell me. You know, I just don't exist. I'm here, but I'm not here. And how do you do that? So I'd practice slipping up on deer or rabbits or whatever I could find out there. And then my cousin Carl started coming over, and we had a little army pup tent. We'd carry that thing a couple 100 meters up on the hill in the woods and put it up. It would go out, and once I got a BB gun, we'd go out and shoot some birds, and little birds, and build us a fire, and we would roast them, and we would say, well, what else do rangers eat? Let's get us some ranger food. Let's go kill something else, and let's come eat it. And we'd camp out there and pretend we were rangers, and we'd go on missions and different things like that. And and we got older. And then when I was 13, my parents sabotaged me because I knew I was going to be a ranger. And Santa Claus came and brought me a chemistry set. I used to watch Shock Theater at midnight on Saturday night. They build Frankenstein and werewolves and change people's brains out. And I said, they can do that. Why can't I do it? So I started, catching rats. I'd catch rats and bring them into my lab, and I'd knock them out. At that time, if you went into a pharmacy, we called them drugstores at that time. If you went in there, I mean, if you could get permission from your parents to buy a syringe, a real syringe, which was a big deal at that time because only drug users and medical people had access to syringes, but talked the pharmacist into letting me buy one. So I had a syringe, and then I could shoot the rats or the birds or whatever up, knock them out, and I could go in, take their brains out, and see if I could swap them and bring them back. I'd swap their hearts, things like that. And try to, from Shock Theater with Frankenstein, the electricity from lightning went in him. I would plug them into the outlet, tended to fry their little hearts and stuff. I never could get one to start back. I could put them in there. I just couldn't get them to work again.
The psych test must have been a lot different to get into the Green Berets back then.
But, yeah, so I really got into chemistry, and then at some point I got into, let's build some rockets. Thompson Rangers need some rockets to launch at the bad guys. So I studied rockets and rocket fuel and the chemistry around it, and again, back to the pharmacy. I need some. I need some potassium nitrate. I need some charcoal, and I need some sulfur. What are you going to do with that? I said, I'm building some bottle rockets. Okay. I had so much of those chemicals in a footlocker in the house. If my mother had realized what that was and what it could have done to our house. But anyway, you could build rocket fuel out of that, and then discovered later you could build bombs out of that too. So I built a launch pad. I built a lab in the barn, and built an actual launch pad out behind it. I had a window so I could look out there and see it, so I didn't get hit with shrapnel or stuff if it exploded on the launch pad. And I'd launch them off of there. And one day I built a big one. It was almost 3 feet high. Exploded on the launch pad. Actually broke windows in my neighbor's house. So I decided I needed to go back down to smaller ones so they didn't do so much damage if they didn't work. But so I played with explosives. I did all kind of chemistry stuff. I mean, when I was in high school, I took the advanced chemistry course. I didn't even have a book. I just basically showed up for class, took the exams, and maxed out the course because I was going down to Clemson University to the library, reading all the articles, reading chemistry books.
Wow.
I found that if you got the older chemistry books around the turn of the century, around 1900, they were like recipe books. They didn't just talk about theory and how, if you mix these two components, then you get this. It was a recipe. This is how many grams of whatever it was that you were going to use and mix together, and this is how you mix it together. They told you how to do all this stuff. So I was learning that and really, really into chemistry. I got a scholarship to University of South Carolina on chemistry.
You had a pet too.
I'm sorry?
You had a pet.
I had several pets, but I had one when I was really young. That was of particular interest. I was in third grade, and my parents got me out of school and took me home and said, "We've got a surprise for you." What is it? Well, you have to wait till we get home. So we got home, we got out, and there was a spider monkey. so it's a monkey. He's on a little chain, a leash, so he's running around doing things. And I thought, that's cool. I snatched that little joker up. I found out about monkey teeth really quickly. I mean, he about bit my finger off. So anyway, I kind of liked him, but I was careful with him because I knew he would bite. We ended up building a small house that was outside, close to the barn, and he would sleep in that at night, and we put a light bulb in there to, for heat, because it was wintertime. And I went out one morning and looked in there, and, I could see his tail sticking out the little door. And I grabbed his tail, and I thought, wow, this is strange. He's not moving. And I pulled him out, and he was literally just straight out. He looked like a monkey on a stick, and he was frozen. And
A monkey on a stick, huh?
he was frozen. And his little mouth was open, all his little teeth were showing. And I was not happy. I mean, I forgave him for all the biting, but I ran back in the house, and I gave him to my mother, and I said, he's dead. And she said, I don't know if he is or not. Let's try this. She wrapped him up in a little blanket and put him on top of a little oil heater that we had. So the heat was coming up to try to warm him up, thaw him out a little bit. And then she heated up some milk and took an eyedropper and squirted that warm milk down his little mouth. And I mean, she kept working with him. And after a while, his little mouth started moving. And she thawed that joker out. She thawed him out, and all of a sudden, he came back to life. I thought, this is really cool. If you can freeze somebody to death and then just thaw them back out, I mean, how cool is that? But anyway, they had the monkey, but he caused so much trouble that we ended up swapping him for a dog. So he had to go away.
You didn't take that and ask for volunteers from your army to freeze, did you?
No. No, I'm not saying I didn't think about it, but
Maybe the guy that got court-martialed could have had a ultimatum.
I did take college students.
Oh, shit.
I have to be careful how much I tell you about it, but I did take college students, and I was interested in what happens if I put you into sleep deprivation. If I don't let you sleep for a while, what will happen? So I got permission to do some research, University of Georgia, using college students. And so I got a group of volunteers, from the ROTC department. These guys were all in the ROTC, Ranger Company there to University of Georgia. Of course, they can do anything, and so they volunteered to do it. So they had their full gear on. We took them out in the national forest, full gear, carrying a 40-pound rucksack, and continuous movement. We'd stop for a 10-minute break every once in a while, but continuous movement, no sleep. Every 4 hours they had to take a test. One of the tests they had to take was a cognitive test. It's basically addition and subtraction, just a couple of sheets of addition and subtraction. And then they would rate, after they finished it, I would say, well, compared to when we first started, when you were fresh, before you'd lost any sleep, compared to that, how well you think you did this time? And they would say, it's pretty easy. I did just as well this time, just as accurate as I did on the first one. I'm looking at the scores and thinking, that didn't happen. One of the things that I discovered was that after 24 hours with no sleep, that you lose about 25% of your cognitive ability, particularly to be able to do things like math. The scary thing is you don't know it. You think you're still just as good as you were when you started out. And it doesn't stop at 24 hours. It keeps on going down.
Declining.
And you don't see things. Things happen in front of you, you don't see it. Things you see sometimes didn't happen. You hallucinate, you do all kinds of things. And, as a ranger instructor for a number of years, with the ranger students, we didn't feed them much. We didn't let them sleep. We kept them running up and down mountains all the time. And they would hallucinate. You'd lose them. You're going through the woods, and all of a sudden, you say, send up the count. They start sending the count up, and you realize you're missing about 10 or 12 people. You stop, you go back, it's night, you go back, and here's a guy standing behind a tree, just standing there, thinking that tree in front of him is his buddy that he's supposed to be following. His buddy's not moving, so he's just standing there, and nobody behind him's moving. They're all waiting. And when I went through, my ranger buddy and I, we were already SF qualified and everything. So it's like, we're going to have some fun, So if you're walking along, you had your little patrol cap on, you had the little ranger eyes in the back, the little fluorescent tabs in the back of the hat, so the guy behind you could see you in the dark. You take your hat off and kind of put it over to the side, and as you're walking along, you just you just start, getting yourself lower and lower, and you're lowering that hat around, and the guy behind you, he's following you. Now he's fiddling around trying to, where's the drop off? Where's he going? And we found that if we did stuff like that, it was hilarious to us, and it kept us motivated. And, we could do all kinds of things, and we had fun in Ranger School. But anyway,
Humor keeps it going.
Yeah, it keeps you moving right along,
especially in the darkest hour.
Yeah. So anyway, with the sleep research, that was a major study that the military used, because one of the things when I was put on the Airland Battle 2000 team to figure out how are we going to go 100 hours straight with the ground war when we move into the 21st century. How can we go 100 hours straight, leaders be able to lead, soldiers be able to function, aviators be able to fly, without 100 hours of that sleep? So I did a lot of research around that. And then I started going to NATO nations and briefing the Army staffs. Here's what we found. Here's what you need to do to be able to function. And I remember very clearly when I briefed the commander of the UK forces. I gave the presentation, and this is what special ops are going to have to do, and then what the soldiers and aviators would do. And I finished that presentation, and the general got up and he said, "Thompson, that was a good briefing. But I can tell you now, we're not doing any of that crap. These guys are just going to have to drive on. We're not doing that." I said, okay, it's a price to pay. And then shortly after that, Falkland Islands came along, and all of a sudden they ran into problems because they didn't have enough pilots down there to meet the safety requirement, the sleep and rest requirement between missions. They tried different chemicals to help them be able to do that, because when a pilot comes back from a mission, his eyes are like that. He's wired from all the stress and everything. He can't go to sleep to start with. When he finally does go to sleep, he can't wake up. And if you give him a chemical that knocks him out right away, then you can't get it out of his system, 6 hours later or 4 hours later when you wake him up and say, "You got to go. You got to fly another mission." He's still trying to figure out who he is. But there are ways to do some of that we worked on getting ready. Because when the Gulf War, when the ground war started, the ground war went 100 hours. Now, my brother was an Apache pilot. And, he was telling me all the time about it. I go fly a mission, I turn around, I come back, I land. While I'm rearming, refueling, I'm sitting there in the cockpit eating a sandwich, drinking a coffee. Because as soon as they get me rearmed, I'm going back out. I got to go fly another mission. And so, that stuff was going on all the time. And you're just not as effective. Mm-hmm. And somewhere around 5 hours or 5 days without any sleep, zero sleep, people start to die. And the university said, we can't keep supporting your research if you have your students dying. So you got to stop keeping them up that long. They didn't actually die, but, they were getting close enough that they were concerned about it.
Wow.
So I hear people all the time.
How long were you keeping these people up? Holy shit.
We ended up stopping them after, I think it was 72 hours as far as we would go. But I hear people tell me all the time, "Man, I can go 5 days without a problem." Young guys, I tell you that. You think you are. I remember in Ranger School, sitting in the bleachers, and an instructor standing in front of us. There's a creek there. He's standing in front of us, and he's talking. And it seems like mid-sentence, he says, "Thompson, in the creek." And I think, "What did I do?" "You were asleep." And I think, "No, I wasn't asleep. In the creek. Do push-ups until I get tired. Make sure your face goes under every time." So I'm out there in the creek trying to drown myself, doing push-ups. And my ranger buddy said, "Yeah, you were sitting here, but you were asleep. You were setting up, your eyes were open, but you were asleep." And I began to realize, you go to sleep and you don't realize it. In fact, some of the research shows that there are more people killed in traffic accidents with drivers falling asleep than there is with drunk drivers.
Interesting.
Almost everyone that drives or been driving for a while can tell you, you've had an experience late at night and you're sleepy and your head's bouncing around, and all of a sudden, just before you hit the bridge abutment, you feel the car run off your shoulder and you jerk it back into the road, because you were asleep. You didn't know it. And, you know, if you're driving a drone, you're driving whatever, and you go to sleep, the drone's on its own now. There's no telling where you're going to put that thing. And if you're, watching a radar screen, you don't see the aircraft coming. You don't see the blips. You're looking at it. Your eyes are open, but you don't see it. There's a whole series of things like that I did a lot of research on, and particularly using it with special ops. And still now I go out, I do a lot of presentations and with different groups, particularly high stress groups, special ops groups, on sleep deprivation, things to help you get around it, to be able to function better, longer, and what's going to happen if you don't. So that's a long answer to whatever you asked me about a monkey or something, I think.
Well, I want to get into that, what you're doing nowadays, towards the end, but you went to school, you dropped out of school, correct?
Yeah, I was in school, and at that time, every night on the 5 o'clock national news, there'd always be a segment about what was happening in Vietnam. And interestingly enough, very different from what we have today. The reporters would be saying, man, we're crushing those guys. I mean, we're just crushing the NBA, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And I started thinking, I wanted to go to Vietnam, so I could, do my patriotic duty like my uncles and father and everybody had done. It's going to be over. If I wait until I finish school, it's going to be over. So I decided to take a break from school, go enlist for 3 years, go do my thing, come back, pick back up where I was in school, and continue on. No intent, no desire to really be a career person. I wanted 3 years, and then I wanted to get back to chemistry and do my thing. And so I stopped. My mother was not happy. My father supported it. My mother kind of freaked out over it. I told her, I'll go back to school. She said, no, you won't. I said, yeah, I'll go back to school. I'll get a doctorate, but I need to go to do this first. And then, I get to the recruiting station and went down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And, they put us in the barracks, went to sleep about 3 o'clock in the morning. All the lights come on, and there's some guy yelling and screaming at the top of his lungs to get up and get to attention in front of your bunk. And then I hear bunks being pushed over, double bunks pushed over, people falling out on the floor, and this guy yelling and hollering. I got my buns up and got to attention in front of my, bunk there, and I looked, and I said, he's my size. He's got a big Smokey the Bear hat on. He's my size, and he sounds like a giant coming through here. And what is that on his shoulder? A Ranger tab. So I thought, that's it. You got to do that. And then he took us on a run, and we were singing all this stuff about, I want to be an airborne ranger. I want to live a life of danger, all this kind of stuff. And I thought, this is cool. If I'm going to be in 3 years, I might as well, this is what I want. I get a chance to, be a real ranger now, not just, what I used to play at. So all of a sudden, I still didn't intend to stay in beyond the 3 years, but I wanted to be a ranger while I was in, and go to Vietnam as a ranger. Why not? So,
What was the sentiment of Vietnam at the beginning of the war?
terrible.
It was terrible.
And the country's divided now.
We're in America.
But And in America, it was divided. So they had you and I, for example. Soon as people looked at our heads, they could say, "Well, he doesn't have hair down to his shoulders. His hair's not parted in the middle. He's in this group over here. You and I are in this other group, and we're much more likely to be patriotic, support the war, and go do it. These other guys, these long-haired hippie guys over on the other side, they're against it. They're all smoking marijuana and they're doing whatever." And I'm kind of exaggerating, but it was divided. Those people, anti-war, protest, do all this kind of stuff. So there were some people who were for it. Most people were against it, and they were out protesting. So, and I had some good friends that had moved on the other side. They were total anti-war. But some of the stuff you were hearing was, we're killing babies, we're killing old women, we're doing all kinds of things like that, which wasn't necessarily true. Mm-hmm. But, I got really excited about the Army and what we were doing and kept thinking, they're paying me to do this. Can you imagine what it would cost if you just wanted to go jump out of an airplane and have a thrill like that? They're paying me to go do that. And all these other things. And the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And when I finished AIT, they just said, "Hey, you're going to OCS."
You went to OCS right away.
Yeah. So you need to go to OCS. And I said, they talked me into it. Said, you can still get out at the end of your 3 years. You'll be your 2-year requirement that you'll get from OCS will be over, and you can still get out of the Army. You'll still get to go to Vietnam. Then you can probably do some of these other neat things like Airborne, Ranger, stuff like that. So I started volunteering in OCS to go to Airborne school and to go to Special Forces. So when I finished OCS, then I just went from there to Airborne school. I was already at Benning. I went to Airborne school, and then they sent me to Bragg and went through the officers Q course up there, and became SF. And then from SF, I went to Rangers, and then went to 5th Group in Vietnam, and did what my buddy said. Or didn't really do what he said. I did the opposite. He said, whatever you do not volunteer for SOG.
Why is that?
And when I asked that question, he said, if you do, you're going to die. And if you don't die, you're going to come home with the crap shot out of you in a nutcase. That's if they find you. Do not volunteer for SOG. I said, what do they do? I said, nobody knows. You have to get there and volunteer and get there, and then you'll find out what you're going to do, but you're going to die or come back as a nutcase. I was 21 years old. At that time in history, we thought that your prefrontal cortex up here in the front of your brain, we thought that the only thing it really did was hold up your cranium so that your front end of your head didn't kind of cave in. And we thought it was fully developed. By the time you're 20 years old, you had all your prefrontal cortex abilities. Really, you got to be about 30 before it's fully developed. So before it's developed, you tell somebody you're going to volunteer to go anywhere, do anything, anytime, and never say a word about it for 20 years. I can do that. I mean, that's a recruiting poster to a 21-year-old. Uh-huh. And if you look at the SOG pictures of the Americans on those teams, almost all of them are little baby-faced guys. You look at Tilt, at John Stryker Meyer, you look at his little baby face, You look at my little baby face. You look at, Eldon Bargewell's little baby face. I mean, all three of us are within 2 or 3 months of the same age. And we all look like little baby faces because we'll go charge that hill. We'll go to another country and do things. Mm-hmm. By the time you're 30, you're saying, let's let the younger guys do that. I don't need to have that kind of action anymore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you're still there at 30 and you're still doing missions like that, as you saw with some of the SEAL work you were doing, it's starting to have a bad effect on you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a limit to how much stress you can take and recover from it, easily. So we don't take good care of our special operators in particular. Yeah. We keep throwing them back out there in the middle of all the stress with no break, with no opportunity, to heal some. And then we put all these restrictions out there. They don't mention the word mental health. Don't say you're getting a little stressed, because we'll take you off the team. With tier 1 guys, like you, like the SOG guys. I mean, I had to pass, the flight physical. I mean, just blow it out of the water every year, or I couldn't be on a team like that. You can't be tier 1. You can't be Halo. You got to have perfect ears, perfect eyes, perfect everything, or they'll take you off the team. And what do? Same thing in SOG. I mean, I used to come back and take forceps and pull pieces. I've got scars all over, pull pieces of shrapnel out and not say anything about it, because I didn't want to get taken off the team. Mm-hmm. And civil guys do it all the time.
Like
Rangers guys still do it. You're not going to report anything. Yeah. But you don't have to,
So did you go right into SOG from the Green Berets?
Yeah. When I got there, when I got to Vietnam, I met a buddy of mine in the bar that first evening when I got there, and he's the one that told me, whatever you do, don't volunteer for SOG, because he'd been there a month before me, so he knew all kind of stuff, right? So the next day, went through all in processing, and at the end of the day, then I ended up in Colonel Bazatz's room, and he said, I'm looking through your folder here. You volunteered for the Army, you volunteered for OCS, you volunteered for Airborne, you volunteered for Ranger, you volunteered for Special Forces, you volunteered for Vietnam. I've got the most important job that you will ever have an opportunity to do, but you have to volunteer for it. And I said, you're trying to get me to volunteer for SOG? And he said, yes. I said, what do I do? What does SOG do? He said, I can't tell you.
He couldn't tell you anything?
I can't tell you what they do. I just tell you, you're going to have to volunteer and sign the volunteer paper to go to SOG. You're going to have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, 20-year agreement, that you won't say the word SOG, you won't say anything about what you guys did for 20 years, or you're going to receive the full punishment of the law. But if you'll do that, you can get into SOG, and you can do things that nobody else can do. So the next day, I was supposed to be at the airfield. They sent me down to the classified end of the airfield where the Blackbirds, the black C-130s and C-133s were all parked. Nobody could go down there. So I went down there, got on an aircraft to go up to the train, and there were no seats in the plane when it got there.